saw it on the news today. A soldier has come home. Surprise a little family today. They're finally home and home. And they're standing by your side every time you call. Yes, they're standing by your side every time you call.
Hi folks, and welcome to another edition of The Slice. Slice number 50 this week, folks. Before I go any further though, I'd like to make sure that you all check out Clarence Mitchell and his Blog Talk Radio. Got some great shows on there. Make sure you check that out, like, share, subscribe, all that happy stuff, as I would like you to do for this channel. Also check out the Ancient Alien Theory group. If you go to facebook.com and you put a backslash and put in the word groups, backslash again and put in AA Theory, and that's AATHEORY. If you spell it just like that and hit enter, you'll go right to the page and you can join up, and one of our helpful administrators will get you in there and get started with you. With that comment, I will say also to check out Kimberly Wright, and she has this chat that she does before and after, whatever happens to be the hot show in that time period. Right now it's the X-Files, so give it a shot. She's going to be talking about that stuff. Also, Matthew Bowers, who's the chief administrator of this site, the Ancient Alien Theory Facebook page is what I'm talking about. He has this great page called The Real MJ12 Eyes to the Sky, and it is very cool. It's got all kinds of stuff. Yes, it does. And he can be found at www.therealmj12, the number 12, eyes-to-the-sky.com, and check that out. He's also got another site you can link off from there called the Dharma Cafe, DHARMA Cafe. If you're into the new wave healing energies and all that stuff, that'd be a great place to link off from his MJ12 UFO site. Okay, so that's taken care of. I'd also like to direct you over to the Facebook page for New Emotion. Just put a search in, and you can go right to that. That's the page. Or you could go to reverbnation.com / New Emotion 2015, all one word. Now I'll get you right to the main page there. Okay, if you like the music coming in or any of that stuff. Okay, so let's get on. Welcome to another edition of The Slice. And we're coming up, got some exciting things to talk about. First of all, Slice number 52. This is coming right up. Slice number 52 is going to be a live YouTube event. Yes, very exciting. I'm going to have call-in guests that will be calling in via Skype, and we'll have them on here with me, interviewing one at a time. I don't like too many people on the line at once, due to the fact that it gets off topic, and it's hard to keep a consistent subject matter going. So if I do it this way, I should be able to control the topics better. So there'll be some call-in guests and then some call-in questions, which will be allowed at certain points. So that's coming up, and that's exciting. I'll announce the subject matter when we get there. I'm still lining up people to talk to and things like that. So any authors out there that have something that they'd like to contribute to that show, go ahead, send me a little message and we'll talk about it. Like I said, the subject matter is still open, so let's, but I do want to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the show by having a live show. And it should be quite interesting. So I suggest that anyone interested, give it a shot. So now we get back to today's show. This is S.A. Jordan's expedition, G.E. Kincaid's story, the lost cave of G.E. Kincaid. Quite cool. We believe we've figured out where it is. Gonna go there as soon as I get my house sold and on the road. That's gonna be one of our things. One thing to note about Kincaid's cave is, well, with any cave that goes deep, there's always going to be another exit or two. It'd be kind of stupid to make a hole in the ground and then not be able to get out of it if something bad happened. So my theory is that there's another entrance somewhere within 600 to 1,000 feet or more of Kincaid's cave. So I'm saying there's more ways into this bad boy, and I intend on finding it. So let me go through my evidence to date, and then you can come up with your own idea as to whether or not this is doable or not. So let's go over my research for the past year and take a look at what could possibly be done when we get up there. Okay, folks, so what we got going on is back to G.E. Kincaid's cave, and you're going to like this show because I go into a lot of stuff that I've been working on for about a year. So this is a culmination of a year's worth of investigation, reading John Wesley Powell's journal, which you never hear about. And you don't hear about it because it is a conundrum. He was a Protestant, and so he went against anything that the religion believed he would bury, and that was unfortunate, but he did keep a journal. So now the latest news, and this is probably regarded by scientists as probably not only the oldest archaeological discovery in the United States, but one of the most valuable in the world. Now, this was mentioned some time ago in the Arizona Gazette, and it goes as possible. It goes like this. This was brought to the city yesterday by G.E. Kincaid, the explorer who found the great underground citadel of the Grand Canyon during a trip from the Green River, Wyoming, down to Colorado, in a wooden boat to Yuma several months ago. According to the story related to the Gazette by Mr. Kincaid, the archaeologists of the Smithsonian Institute, which is financing the expeditions, have made discoveries which almost conclusively prove that the race which inhabited this mysterious cavern, hewn in solid rock by human hands, was of Oriental origin, possibly from Egypt, tracing back to Ramses. If their theories are borne out by the translation of the tablets engraved with these hieroglyphics, the mystery of the prehistoric peoples of North America, their ancient arts, who they were and whence they came, will be solved. Now, if this, what else do they say? Oh yeah, Egypt and the Nile and Arizona and the Colorado will be linked by a historical chain running back to ages which staggers the wildest fancy of the fictionist. Okay, so with this information, we go into the fact that supposedly Professor S.A. Jordan of the Smithsonian Institute was supposedly doing a thorough exploration, and it's crazy to think. Now, one of the other articles also mentions this. Nearly a mile-long tunnel underground, about 1,480 feet below the surface, the long main passage has been delved into to find another mammoth chamber from which radiate scores of passageways like the spokes of a wheel. Interesting, huh? Several hundred rooms have been discovered, reached by passageways running from the main passage, one of them having been explored for 854 feet and another 634 feet. Recent finds include articles which have never been known to be native to this country, and doubtless they had their origin in the Orient. War weapons, copper instruments, sharp-edged and hard as steel, indicate the high state of civilization reached by these strange people. Now, the scientists were so interested, apparently, that preparations were made to equip the camp for extensive studies, and they increased their force to 30 or 40 people. Now, S.A. Jordan wrote, "Before going further into the cavern, better facilities for lighting will have to be installed, for the darkness is dense and quite impenetrable for the average flashlight. In order to avoid being lost, wires are being strung from the entrance to all passageways leading directly to large chambers. How far this cavern extends, no one can guess, but it is now the belief of many that what has already been explored is merely the barracks, to use an American term." Alright. For the soldiers, and that far into the underworld will be found the main dwellings of the families. Okay. Now, that was what S.A. Jordan supposedly wrote, and now we go into what John Wesley Powell wrote. "The perfect ventilation of the cavern, the steady drought that blows through indicates that it has another outlet to the surface." Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, that was Kincaid's report. Now, let's talk about Kincaid for a minute. Kincaid was the first white child born in Idaho, believe it or not, and had been an explorer and hunter all his life. He spent 30 years in the service of the Smithsonian. Even briefly recounted his history. Sounds pretty incredible, almost grotesquely so. First, let's impress that the cavern is nearly inaccessible. The entrance is 1,486 feet from the top of the cliff, and it is located on government land, and supposedly there is no access allowed, regardless of what Graham Hancock and his people say. That seems to be the case. I think there's many ways into the thing, but the scientists there apparently, in the day, the paper wrote something about the scientists wish to work unmolested without fear of their discoveries being disturbed by, treasure hunters. So, I guess one of the things to remember is that Kincaid was going down the Colorado looking for minerals. He was not originally doing a Smithsonian exploration. Now, here's exactly what was said by Kincaid. Some 42 miles up the river from El Tovar Crystal Canyon, I saw in the east wall stains in the sedimentary formation about 2,000 feet above the riverbed. So he went on to say that there was no trail, but he finally reached it with great difficulty. above a shelf which hid it from view from the river was the mouth of a cave. And there are steps leading from this entrance some 30 yards to what was at the time the level of the river was there. Okay, so he says, when I saw the chisel marks on the wall inside the entrance, I became interested. Securing my gun, I went in. During that trip, I went back several hundred feet along the main passage till I came to the crypt in which I discovered the mummies. One of these I stood up and photographed by flashlight. I gathered a number of relics which I carried down the Colorado to Yuma, from whence I shipped them to Washington with details of the discovery. Okay, so after Kincaid sent those to Washington, the explorations were started. So here's the description made of the passages. Now this is information gleaned from both John Wesley Powell's accounts and Kincaid's journal as well. I've done a lot of research on this. The main passageway is 12 feet wide, and then as it goes further in, it narrows to 9 feet wide. So about 57 to 60 feet from the entrance, the first of the side passages branch off to the right and left, along which on both sides are a number of rooms about the size of ordinary living rooms of today. Now, some are 30 by 40 feet square. They are entered by oval-shaped doors and are ventilated by round air spaces through the walls into the passages. The walls are about 3 feet 6 inches in thickness, and the passages are chiseled as straight as could be laid out by an engineer. And the ceilings of many of the rooms converge to a center. The side passages near the entrance run at sharp angles from the main hall, but toward the rear they gradually reach a right angle in direction. Then there's a cross hall where they believe it was a shrine. Over 100 feet from the entrance is a cross hall several hundred feet long, in which are found the idol of the people's god, sitting cross-legged with a lotus flower, a lily in each hand. It looks like a Buddha, actually. So the cast of the face is oriental, and the carving was done exquisitely. The idol almost resembles Buddha, though the scientists are not certain as to what religious worship it represents. Well, it's going to be Buddha. So, taking into consideration everything found thus far, is it possible that this worship most resembles the ancient people of maybe Tibet, maybe, or Nepal? Okay, so this is a kind of an interesting setup. I'm sure that also surrounding that idol are smaller images, some beautiful in form, others are crooked, naked, and distorted in shapes. Symbolically, maybe, probably of good or evil. There are 2 large cactus with protruding arms, one on each side of the dais, on which the god squats. All this is carved out of hard rock resembling marble. Now, this was part of what was put in the Arizona Gazette in 1909. I don't think many other people talk about the whole article. You know, people get confused about different cultures and what things represent. Now, in the opposite corner of that same cross hole, they found tools of all descriptions made of copper. Now I'm starting to blend the information sources a little bit here. Now, the people of this cave undoubtedly knew the lost art of hardening copper, which has basically been sought for centuries by chemists, and otherwise we use copper a lot more. Now, there's a bench that ran around one of the workrooms and has some charcoal and other material probably used in that process of hardening the copper. There's also some slag and stuff similar to matte, showing that these ancient smelted ores, but so far they hadn't found any trace of where or how this was done, or the origin of the ore for that matter. Other finds that were noted are vases and urns, cups of copper and gold, very artistic in design. The pottery work includes enameled ware and glazed vessels, which means they had a kiln for that too. Yet another passageway supposedly led to granaries, such as found in the original temples, and they contained seeds and various kinds. They had one large storehouse that, as of the writing of the journal, had not yet been entered. It was 12 feet high and can only be reached from above. Two copper hooks extend on the edge, which indicate that some kind of ladder was attached at one time. The granaries are rounded, as the materials of which they are constructed, I think, is very hard cement. A gray metal is also found in this cavern, which puzzles the scientists because its identity has never been established. It resembles platinum. And then also, all over the floor everywhere is what people call cat's eyes, a yellow stone, and engraved with the head of the Malay type, Malaysian style head. So that's all interesting and everything, and it's crazy stuff to learn about. But on all the urns, the walls, the doorways, and tablets of stone, they found mysterious hieroglyphics, and at the time, Smithsonian hoped to discover the key to them. Now, these writings resemble those on the rocks that lie about the valley. The engraving on the tablets probably have something to do with the religion of the people. Supposedly similar hieroglyphics were found in the peninsula of the Yucatan, but they're still not the same as those found in the Orient. Now, some believe that these cave dwellers built the old canals in the Salt River Valley, and thereby helping to get the salt out. So, I do have a copy of the hieroglyphics, the copy of the photographs, and I put it right here. Now, that was taken in 1908 inside the cave of the Grand Canyon. This was submitted by a friend that requested that the source remains anonymous, and I always honor those, so we'll call that good. The tomb or crypt in which the mummies were found is one of the largest of the chambers. The walls slant back at about an angle of 35 degrees. On these tiers of mummies, each one occupies a separate hewn shelf. At the head of each is a small bench on which is found copper cups, pieces of broken swords, some of the mummies covered with clay, and all are wrapped with a dark fabric. The urns or cups are on a lower tier, the crude. As you reach the higher shelves, the urns are finer in design, showing a much more refined stage of civilization. At the time, all the mummies they examined had proved to be male, no children or females. Okay, So we're starting to see a picture here. And remember, this was all done in 1909. Now, among the discoveries, they found no bones of animals, no skins, no clothing, no bedding. Many of the rooms are bare except for water vessels. One room is 40 feet by 700 feet. It's probably the main dining hall. They found cooking utensils, and what they lived on might have been a problem, though it is presumed that they farmed in the south in the winter and then go back north in the summer, but unknown. Upwards of 50,000 people could have lived in the caverns comfortably. One theory is that the present Indian tribes that are found in Arizona are descendants of the serfs or slaves of the people who inhabited the caves. Undoubtedly, a good many thousands of years before the Christian era, people lived here which have reached a high stage of civilization. Now, we know the chronology of human history is full of gaps. So, Professor Jordan was very excited over the discoveries, and he always believed that the find would prove incalculable in value to archaeologists in general. One thing I haven't talked about, which may be of interest, is one chamber of the passageway which is not ventilated. And when they approached it, a deadly snaky smell struck us. And they couldn't light it up, and they didn't want to go back until they got stronger ones. It could be a container of chemicals used by the ancients, but they heard no sounds, but it smells snaky. Okay. He mentioned that the whole underground installation gives one of shaking nerves the creeps. The gloom is like a weight on one's shoulders, and our flashlights and candles only make the darkness blacker. So, yes. So, in connection with this story, we'll go to the Native Americans. It is notable that among the Hopi Indians, the tradition is told that their ancestors once lived in an underground world in the Grand Canyon, till they started arguing between the good and the bad people, and the people of one heart and the people of two hearts. So a chief called Machado, who counseled them to leave the underworld, but there was no way out. Supposedly the chief caused a tree to grow up and pierce the roof of the underworld, and the people climbed out. They hung out by the Red River for a while, which is the Colorado, and grew grain and corn. They sent out a message to the Temple of the Sun asking the blessing of peace, goodwill, and rain for people of one heart. But the messenger never returned. Now, even today, at the Hopi villages at sundown, the old men of the tribe out on the housetops gaze towards the sun looking for the messenger, supposedly. When he returns, their lands and ancient dwellings place will be restored to them, and that is the tradition. Among the engravings of animals in the cave is the image of a heart over the spot where it is located. Of all the images that are found, they always show the heart. Excuse me. Now, W.E. Rollins heard about this legend, and during a year that he spent with the Hopi Indians, he came up with two theories on the origin of the Egyptian caves. One is that they came from Asia, and another is that the racial cradle was in the Upper Nile region, and believed the Indian origin to be of the Egyptians. But who knows, it might have been something far more different. So they warn quite a bit against any attempt to get to the cave from the rim or below. Be extremely dangerous. All approaches to the cave area are very dangerous. Also, it is illegal to enter most caves in the Grand Canyon unless it is properly sanctioned by Grand Canyon National Park. It's also on the Navajo reservation. I don't know, disturbing prehistoric artifacts is a bad idea, but if the Smithsonian is going to keep it hidden, then I say screw that. You know, it's I mean, you get the proper permits, yeah, okay, great, but it isn't necessarily a good thing. Now, let's see here. Now, we know that Kincaid, let's see, April 5th, 1909. I told you all about these things here. Now, it is important to know, however, that S.A. Jordan is not named as a Smithsonian employee. The article only says he supervised the exploration. So they didn't actually name him as a Smithsonian employee, but he did bring them back there. So I'm not going to try to speculate or go into reasons I may have to determine whether or not Mr. Kincaid's story is true or false. You know, it may or may not. Now, my purpose is to determine the best that I can from Mr. Kincaid's words, Wesley Powell's words, and through other research and experience that I have. Now, I have a good idea where this alleged cave and subsequent citadel might be located in the Grand Canyon National Park. Now, I determined what I think is the most likely location based on evidence gained from Mr. Kincaid's own description of the location, my knowledge of the Grand Canyon from several hikes through it, my extensive reading and research on the Grand Canyon, and the elevation of the data of the area from the United States Geological Survey. Mileage distances on the Colorado River, the historical place names in the Grand Canyon, and geological layers in the Grand Canyon, along with other sources of research, are what was used to pinpoint this. Now, I'm going to attempt to make a case for its location at a relatively specific point in the Marble Canyon area of the Grand Canyon National Park. It may include a portion of the Navajo Indian Reservation. I believe the underground portion of the caverns is actually probably on Navajo land. Now, I'm going to quote G.E. Kincaid's own words on the location as published in the Gazette, and then add my reasons for my interpretation of his words and how they describe what I deduced to be the location a long time ago. First, nearly inaccessible. Okay, we know that much. It would have been located hard to get at in 1909, but probably less so today. It's in a deep river gorge, which means it's a section of the Marble Canyon that has like a mini canyon with it that you follow up. So you could also hike there from the Tanner Trail or down the North Rim on Nankoweap Trail. You can cross the Colorado River there illegally and walk the east bank to a point across from Quadunt Rapids. Now, the most practical way to get there would involve some scrambling down steep areas of the Hopi Salt Trail. It's in the canyon gorge of the Little Colorado. Then hike several miles westerly to the confluence of the Colorado and Little Colorado, which is Marble Canyon. Then you'd have pretty much a level hike along the Colorado River in a northerly direction for several miles. Yeah, you'd have to go and, I don't know, maybe a inflatable raft to some parts. In 1909, though, the site would have been less known and less frequently traveled, making a hiking trip to the location a lot more hazardous. You could, in theory, attempt a rim climb down to the cave, but if it's 1,486 feet down, then you want to take 3,000 feet of rope. It sounds real dangerous. This kind of cliff, though, is pretty common in Marble Canyon, and now the height is another important elevation marker in determining the location of this site. Now, I don't know. The cliffs that would be just below the rim are steep and impassable. Now let's look at the next clue. He's journeying down the Colorado River. Okay, so coming down with the current, and the river, I don't know. It's not confusing today. I would say that it's easy to tell that he was coming down the river from up above. Besides, we already know where he was coming from. He was heading to Yuma. So, let's assume he was going downriver. And he referred to a location called El Tovar Crystal Canyon. He referred to the cave as being a certain distance from that canyon. Now, El Tovar originally, historically, came from Don Pedro Tovar, one of the Spanish explorer, one of Coronado's captains, actually. And he was sent into the area in 1541 in August. They hadn't yet found the Colorado River, so they went back to seek it, and they found it. They tried to cross the gap of the canyon, but they couldn't. They failed. But they were the first non-Native Americans to see it. Now, let's see. The Grand Hotel, called El Tovar, was built on the rim of the canyon between 1903 and 1905. Now, they said he brought the story to the city, city of Phoenix, after having discovered the site several months before. Okay, so he most likely discovered the site in October of 1908. And he may have been referring to the hotel's name in reference to Crystal Canyon. So, the mouth of the Crystal Creek, which comes out of Crystal Canyon, should be visible from a window of the hotel. And Kincaid simply used the hotel as a reference point that readers of the Gazette could probably relate to. It was a brand new hotel, brand new place to stay. The middle to upper reaches of Crystal Creek should be visible. Anyway, the only other modern public structures currently anywhere near Crystal Creek is Phantom Ranch. And that was built in 1922, several years after Kincaid's discovery and the appearance of the Phoenix Gazette article. It's the importance of this is that most likely in an extensive search of the Grand Canyon area referring to historical journals, I went and looked at several historic and modern maps, hikers' guides, rangers, Grand Canyon historians. There is no reference to El Tovar Crystal Canyon. The only other place that comes close is Tobar Terrace, further west in the canyon, but it's bordered by Blacktail Canyon, and it's not even near where they should be. So, various sources agree that the reference most likely refers to the canyon in which Crystal Creek flows. And that's off a side canyon in the heart of the Great Canyon. I agree that Kincaid was most likely referring to Crystal Creek and its associated canyon at mile 98 on the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. The name Crystal Creek is commonly labeled on the Grand Canyon maps dated to the period when Kincaid was traveling the river, so he would have had access to this map. Let's see, we use those markers, mile 98, etc., etc. So these points do reference a distance on the Colorado River from Lee's Ferry, Arizona. And that was a common starting point for many Colorado River float trips. So it is at mile 98. So subtracting, he said, some 42 miles up the river from El Tovar. So you subtract 42 miles from mile 98, that leaves mile 56. Now, up the river is against the current, and in the Grand Canyon, this means up towards Lee's Ferry. So, mile 56 would be at Quagunct Creek or Quagunct Rapid in Marble Canyon. So, Marble Canyon got its name from Major John Wesley Powell. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. They said that the hall was carved out of a material similar to marble. So, John Wesley wrote in his journal about cliffs of marble which contained a great number of caves. So the citadel that Kincaid speaks of is in a cave. So since Powell's time, many caves have been noted or discovered in the Marble Canyon area, including Stanton's Cave, which is a large cave in the Red Wall Formation at mile 31.7. And it is an important archaeological site. So, Marble Gorge it lies between the mouths of Paria and Little Colorado. So he named Major Powell in 1869 named that. He wrote also, "We have cut through the sandstones and through the sandstones and where the limestones met in the upper part of the canyon, and only through one great bed of marble 1,000 feet in thickness. So we call it Marble Canyon. It is 650, no, I'm sorry, you lied, 65.5 miles long. So, someone with Powell, a man named Dallenbaugh, writes, as the formation was mainly a fine-grained gray marble, Powell concluded to call this division by a separate name and gave it a title, Marble Canyon. And that was, of course, his call since he was director of the... So, it's interesting to note that at mile 56, the Marble Canyon and Colorado River turn from a southeastern direction and trends almost due south for approximately 3.31 miles. Now that's a clue. The 5.5 mile or so stretch of the Colorado River in Marble Canyon, it still likely hides Kincaid's cave. Now, the stains in the sedimentary rock was what first drew Kincaid's attention. It's also what we use to find this location. Now, Kincaid's observations are very important. First, Kincaid notices the stains on the east wall, which means that they are going north and south, which we already determined was 3.3 miles. Okay. It is easy to see that he would have been in a position on the river to be just next to an east wall immediately after passing through Quagant Rapid. Okay. Now, the stains, according to Kincaid, were in the sedimentary formation. This is very important. It's basically a record of altered sedimentary deposits. From the rim to the river in Marble Canyon, there are successive layers of modified sedimentary deposits. Alright? So, most all the formations had their origins in sedimentary deposits. Marble Canyon, in particular, it had several modified types reach from rim to river. So, and then also further south and west in the Grand Canyon, the inner gorge of the Colorado. It's about between 12 and 1900 feet high cliffs on both sides. They make up the Vishnu schist, and these are sandstones, shales, and limestones intermingled with lava flow. Now, the dark rock of the Vishnu schist is the result of a metamorphism caused by tremendous pressure of lying under nearly 12 miles of formations. And it was crushed, folded, and melted into its present highly altered state as it was pushed up. Now, it would take a stretch of the imagination to see Kincaid looking up at the nearly glassy dark brown surface of the schist and calling it a sedimentary formation. Also, immediately above the inner gorge of the schist is the Tonto platform, a nearly horizontal platform of gently rolling hills that extends for some distance horizontally. Now, if these were Egyptians, they would have chariot racers and such there on the flat areas, it would seem, just to keep themselves from going crazy. Well, this kind of formation is not known for caves, but Kincaid said he saw stains on the sedimentary formations 2,000 feet above the river bed. Well, if he looked up, he'd only see the Vishnu schist. He would not be able to see anything of the horizontal Tonto platform. It would have been out of his line of sight. So he would not have seen stains on the sedimentary formation here, since the Vishnu schist is not sedimentary. He would also have been located incorrectly on the river, since he would not even be near 42 miles up the river. So people that say that the Vishnu schist area is it, they're wrong. And there are some people that say that. Now, if you do look at the schist as in the central area of the Grand Canyon is called Granite Gorge. Now, you can see just below a elevation marker, which is 3,898 feet, it contains Tonto Trail. Now, Clear Creek Trail is a broad horizontal formation. Now, it's true that views in Marble Canyon at river level are somewhat limited due to the steep walls of the Red Wall Formation. But at mile 56 on the Colorado River, in Marble Canyon, there's a large gap in the vertical walls that would allow a clear view up to the 2,000 foot level where Kincaid said he saw stains in the sediment. So, the elevation of the river is near 2,760 feet. The elevation at the rim above Quogun is about 6,050 feet. So, they vary a little bit in the 6-mile stretch that would have been designated as having the cave. Now, if we subtract 2,760, the river at ground level, we have 3,290 feet as the actual height of the canyon at Quogun from river to rim. Remember, Kincaid said he saw it about 2,000 feet above the riverbed. The entrance is 1,486 feet down the sheer canyon wall, meaning that it's from the rim. Now, if we add those two figures, 2,000 feet and 1,486 feet, we come up with 3,486 feet as Kincaid's height from river to rim. Now, that figure is only 196 feet in variation from the actual height at from river to rim of 3,290, and that's at the present day location. Now, considering that the rim and river elevations vary almost 200 combined feet in that 6-mile stretch of canyon, it is evident that Kincaid's measurements are highly accurate into the area in which he stated he saw the cave. Okay. I think that the cave described in the headline story of the Arizona Gazette of April 5th, 1909, still may be located above an approximate 6-mile stretch of the Colorado River in Marble Canyon at the border of Marble Canyon and the Navajo Nation, above an area near Quogun Rapids. And I guess it's a good time to say that a lot of my research was centered on the University of Arizona Press notes for Arizona place names, and a book called History of Grand Canyon National Park, and then a few other books that talk about early settlers and things like that. So we have a conundrum, don't we? We have a wonderful mystery. We have some beautiful scenery, and I can't wait to get out there and take a look. So, rock on. And there you go. You see the sun is now coming through the blinds, creating a heat strange pattern. The pattern that was there before was strange enough. Anyway, folks, that's my research on Jordan and Kincaid's cave, and I think I have a good idea where to go. As you can tell, I put a lot of supporting evidence there. So hopefully when I get out there, I can find an alternative entry. I believe there's up to 6 entries to this cave system. They said there was a good breeze going through the thing, which tells you right there that there's many more openings, not just one. It would be, if it was 2 or 3, you'd get a steady breeze, but if you get, I would think 4 or 5, depending on how many people were in the city. I believe the one they found in Turkey had 6, something like that. 6 separate entries, and I would assume this would be close to the same, 4 to 6 is my guess. So hopefully they're not all guarded, but as long as I can get within, I don't know, a couple thousand feet of the original opening, I can still find, I mean, the other openings are going to be at the further points to create the correct cross draft to provide ventilation. So they may be sealed up, but we'll find them. There should be one on the flat ground, and there could be several on the cave walls. And if it goes in far enough, it could even be on the other side where the other canyon starts, where the other entrance is. But I believe that would be on Navajo land then, and that's probably not a good idea. But anyway, that's Slice 50 for you. Remember, Slice 52 will be a live slice. It'll also be available after the show in regular slice as well. But it'll be live at the time, and there'll be plenty of advertising going on for that. So keep your eyes open for the Slice 52 show. It'll be kind of open forum, although I want to go over one of my theories, so the show could end up being quite long. We'll see. I have no limit on the show length, so we can just go. I believe we don't have a limit, but I said it when I set it up. I'll put it at 4 hours just in case. But all right, folks, that's another edition of Slice. Have a great week, and see you next week with another edition of the Slice.
Stand by your side.